Welcome to the Mindful Mac podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie. On this podcast, we would like to showcase stories that led ordinary people to doing extraordinary things through a positive mindset, self-growth, creativity, improvement, being a good leader, and, well, leaving a legacy. With this podcast, we hope to inspire you to apply these principles to your life to see where it can get you, while also providing you with brain food to fuel you on your journey. In today's episode, we have my 10th grade multimedia design teacher, Ryan Rutter, here with us to share his story. We could go ahead and get started with our first question. For the people that are new to you, explain what you do, who you are.
So my name's Ryan Rutter, and I've been working in real estate. This is about to be in my 6th year, and it's been a great time, and it's kind of a long story getting to where I am now. And just to share, I guess, a little bit about that journey and where it started is kind of started back in education. And when I was in college, I went, and I didn't really know, just growing up, I think a lot of people have these aspirations of what they want to be when they grow up. They think like, I want to be like, I don't know, a doctor or a physical therapist or whatever, firefighter. But for me, I didn't really have any strong calling to a profession or something like that. I do remember thinking, I just want to be married. That was like one of the biggest things that I could think of. I was like, I just want to be married. But as far as a job is concerned, I really didn't have anything. And so when I went to college, and it was I knew I wanted to do some form of business, and I was a business management major, and which is about the most generic major you can have, other than like general studies when it comes to business, I guess. So just it was there really isn't anything explicit in there that will help you do anything in particular. It's just kind of like a general overall degree. And so I wasn't too excited about that because I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. Because I was like, well, I have this degree and it's just about as general as my feeling for what I want to do. So I didn't know where I was going to go after that. So after I was in my final year, I was in my senior year, and a lot of my business classes kind of intertwine with technology, and I had taken a lot of IT classes, and my counselor called me in there and said, hey, if you take these 4 classes and just drop these electives your last year or last semester, you could double major and get a grant, and it would be computer information systems. And so I was like, all right, like that sounds good. I'll have two majors. I get a grant, so I'm getting money to help me pay for college, and I'll be able to. It's a little bit more specific, that major, so I'll be able to do more with it, or at least have something extra to help whenever I go to get a job. And if it hadn't been for that conversation and for her pulling me in just to tell me that I had that opportunity, I probably would not be doing what, or at least where I am today. My path definitely wouldn't have been the same, I don't think, because I wouldn't have had the same opportunities. So after that, I actually spent the summer. I had to stay for the summer semester. I think I had to finish 2 more classes that were affiliated with it, so I could get that grant and get the double major. So I graduated and walked with everybody for the business degree, but didn't have the CIS degree until after the summer. And so after that, something that I appreciated about my dad was that he, and just my parents in general, they didn't have like these high hopes or like these big aspirations for
Like expectations.
what they expect me to do or be. And my dad, something he always said that I'll never forget is, I don't care if you're a garbage man, that drive a garbage truck. Like, I don't care. He's like, I just care. I just want you to be happy. That's what I want you to do. And so for me, it took a lot of pressure off because I didn't feel like, oh man, like I need to, I don't know, do something to like earn or measure up to what they think I need to be or do. And so it left it very open. And so something that I've always kind of taught other people is kind of the same thing. Is like do what's gonna where you're most happy. Because I mean, truthfully, my belief is that where you are most alive or most happy is where God wants you to be. Because that's, I mean, a lot of people think that his will is in conflict with your own. And sometimes that might be the case, but for the most part, he
For the
you know he
most
wants the
part,
best.
yeah.
He wants the best for you. And I think what most people don't realize is if whatever he has for you is going to be better than anything you could ever imagine you doing
That's
yourself.
true.
Um so I left college with the 2 degrees, and I had done like some ministry stuff throughout college. And I got a phone call, and it was a friend who wanted me to go work at a camp in Texas. It was a Catholic camp out there, and it was a missionary position that basically was a combined ministry and also fixing everything. So it was like almost like property management at the camp. And so it was a perfect blend of like doing like investing in kids' lives and doing ministry, and but also like doing a lot of repairs, plumbing, and like a lot of work, like hands-on stuff that I
Handy
really,
mandy.
yeah, I really enjoy doing that. And one of the days I came home, and I was out there for about a year and a half. I came home, and my sister had her first child, and I just remember thinking, I came to hold him, and like he just started crying. And at this point, I think he was like, I don't think he was a year yet, but I was thinking, oh man, like he doesn't even know who I am. And I just felt like, I don't know, I felt like it was important to be around my family and just kind of at least invest in their lives. And so where my nephew could actually know who I was. So I wanted moving back. So I went from doing that kind of a missionary and property management to, I was like, all right, well, let's start working on stuff with my degree and see if I even like any of this stuff, because I really hadn't done anything too in depth with either degree at that point. And so I came back and I started doing my own computer business where I would go out and help people. And it was like kind of word of mouth, really. I really wasn't doing any marketing whatsoever. I did have business cards, but that was about it. And people would share my card and share information. And I was like going out to people's houses and helping them. Because I mean, I have at that point had technology knowledge and was able to like fix and repair and but and I kind of learned that stuff through a portion of school, but also just in my own curiosity and love to take things apart. And so I started doing that, and it just wasn't really providing enough money to do anything really. I mean, not do as much as I would want to do. And my I moved back home, and I was staying with my parents, and I wasn't having to pay rent or anything, so that was nice. Um, to try and get my feet on the ground. And then it really was going kind of slow. And I heard from a friend that there was a position opening up at a hospital doing IT. And so I worked there. I got the job, and they were impressed. They were like, it looks like you've been doing your own business for, I think at that point it was like a year and a half or something like that. And they were like, I think that was one thing that was I had going for me, that I had been doing that already on my own. And then with the degree as well, there was somebody else who had been working there for many, many years prior to me working there. He's a little bit older, but um, I remember him telling me what he made financially, and it wasn't that much more than what I felt like I was making starting out. And so I was thankful, for that degree that I had, and I feel like that helped financially, when it came to getting hired and getting hired. So I worked there for 3.5 years, and as I worked there, I kind of discovered that if it's kind of like being a fireman when you work in IT, if nothing's burning down, for the most part, you're just sitting there. And I mean, there are things to work on, but in my position, what I was doing, I would say more of like a help desk role. But we kind of blended a bunch of other things because it was a smaller hospital, and so we wound up doing a lot of other like networking and things. But it was, if something wasn't burning down, we weren't getting called. And so there were days that I would sit there for literally 8 hours or 7 hours, and the phone wasn't ringing. And I was like, I'm gonna go crazy because I don't have the personality to sit there and do nothing. So for some people, I think that's their dream job. They're like,
Yes.
yes, I could like sit there and play games all day, look at my phone or whatever. But for me, I felt like I don't know, I felt like I was created for more, and I felt like I was rotting in a cubicle sitting there.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had already started looking, and there were some other frustrations. It was, there was a bunch of other frustrations with the job, but I think that was kind of the biggest thing. Was I just felt so almost like borderline depressed. I was just like, I just feel like need to do
That
more
wasn't
with.
it.
Yeah. So I forgot. I guess one of my best friends got into education, and I was thinking, that'd be awesome. If I were to get married, which I had, still wanted to. It's like if I did get married and we had kids and our kids, were in school, I would get out at the same time. That'd be awesome. I'd get to spend a lot of time with, my family, which, was a priority and which was something that was important to me. And so I worked in education for 3 years. And the way that I got that job, I don't obviously have an education degree, because I already told you the two degrees that I did have. But I went and interviewed for the position. It was a career tech position that was being taught at a high school that you're well aware of. And
I was
so
there.
I was sitting there, and he said you needed to have so many years experience in your field before you were to educate other people. And I think it was like, it might have been 3 years, I don't know, or I think maybe it was 2 years, I don't know. But that kind of opened up the door. So looking back, I was kind of like, wait, why am I doing this stuff? But you look back and you're thinking like, oh, like I couldn't have done that without doing that prior. And
Exactly.
so it opened up the door for me to even be able to do that. And one of the things that I was really excited about is because I had previously done that ministry position and kind of investing in kids' lives, and then being isolated in the cubicle, and then being
Yes.
like, okay, this is awesome. Like this is an awesome opportunity to like invest in kids' lives and like hopefully, make some kind of a positive change, and just help people out. And so I left the hospital, went into education, and during that time, I met my wife, and we wound up getting married, wound up having our first child, and then found that, oh man, I'm not going to be able to afford having a child. And my wife, wanted to stay at home. And at the time, your entry pay pay grade, if you're is just so minimal. And I'll just share. I mean, I think my paycheck was $2,017 a month. It was just so small. I mean, most people have a mortgage that's almost takes that up,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
and so it's like after that, I mean, you have utilities and food and
Yeah.
gas and just everything adds up. And so we were fortunate enough because when I was living at home when I worked at the hospital, so I was able to save some money so where we could have not as big of a mortgage as I would say most people do, um, but I knew that we couldn't stay in that position. And they had other options and like you could drive a bus and you can coach and you can get a job during the summer. And I was like, well, the whole point of this job, like when I started, other than investing in people's lives, was that I'd be able to invest in my own family's life when my kids go to school, so that when they get off, I'll be off, and like I can spend time with them. And and part of that is, and I don't know if you're gonna have another question that covers this, but part of this is because like my own dad, I just felt like just wasn't enough time with him, and like he's still alive. So like I gratefully can still
I can
spend
relate.
I can still spend time with them, but I just felt like there just wasn't a lot of quality time just to spend with them when I was a kid. And so I didn't want that for my kids. I just wanted to be able to spend more time with them. And so anyway, I was like, if I'm going to do all those other jobs, I really felt like I would be essentially like a father to all these other kids. If I'm going to be out until 11, yeah, if I'm going to be out until 11 o'clock at night, like during, coaching football or something, like where are my kids going to be? Like they're going to be in bed sleeping. And then, or if I'm driving a bus and I don't get back until, 5 or 6 o'clock, or if I go work during the summer, I was like, I might as well just go back to IT where I was getting paid more than to begin with
Yeah,
and
sitting there doing
go,
nothing.
yeah. I was like, I might as well just go back to what I was doing. And then at least we can afford to do the things what we want to do. And so it's kind of a crazy story. If you're not familiar with how the tenured system works here, after the first day of your fourth year, the school system can't fire you unless you do something
Really bad.
really stupid. So, but I understand the reason for it because when administration changes at a school, which happens, relatively often, a lot of people will just bring the coaches from their school and all that stuff with all the politics that's involved with that. And as a result, then people would be, kicked out and lose their jobs. And so as a result, they have, this system, and I'm sure there's plenty of other reasons as well, but that's one that I guess witnessed and saw. But um, the so the tenure system allows you to, I guess, keep your job after that point unless you do something wrong, really wrong. And but I hadn't been there for that amount of time, and so the position that I filled when I came in, they said that they were gonna the teacher whose position or classroom I took, they were going to move him back into that classroom and stop his role. And that was I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna be let go. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna, I mean, they were gonna give me a pink slip or whatever. And I was gonna be let go. And then they were like, well, we can try and find you a job at another school. And I was like,
You're
no.
like, it's already not really working out. I'm good.
Yeah. And then I was like, they called me a week into it. So after so it was all crazy. So we were pregnant with our first child.
I remember.
Um, and they gave me like the notice that I was going to be let go. We were under contract with our first house. We were buying our first house. And so we backed out of that house. We're like, look, I just found out I'm losing my job. I'm like, we're not going to be buying. Actually, no, I have to go back. I didn't know we were pregnant at that time,
Okay.
but I found out that I was losing my job. We were under contract for with our first house, and we let it go because we were like, this is I'm gonna get fired. I don't know what we're gonna do right now, so let's just take a break on the house thing. Well, a week later, they call me back and they say, well, we're not going to do that transition this year. We're actually going to do that next year, most likely. But if you want to come back and, do your third year, then you can complete the certification because, like I said, I didn't have that education degree, but that would you needed 3 consecutive years of teaching to complete your alternate certificate that would allow you to teach and be in the education system. And so I was like, okay, well, I can finish that, and if I ever want to teach, I'll at least have the certificate. And so I was like, if I don't find something better, and I want to.
That's true.
Because at that point, I was like, I can see the writing on the wall. I was like, right now, I'm like not a priority. So, and I didn't wind up finding anything really that was so compelling that I was like, you know what, I'll just go back and finish. And so. But then we found out we were pregnant, and that's when we found out we were pregnant. So when we found that out, I was like, now we're definitely going to buy a house, because I was like, if the plan was for my wife to stay at home, I was like, if you want to stay at home, then it's going to be harder to get approved financially to purchase a house on just one of our incomes. So I was like, let's go ahead and do it, and then we'll just after the baby comes, then we'll just deal with it and go from there. And so during that last year, that third year of education, we had our first child, and then kind of quickly saw that, with bills and everything, with housing, our mortgage, and it just wasn't going to do it. And that's kind of when all those questions came up with, like, okay, we're not going to be able to do this financially. And if we can make it work, then I'd have to be working
A lot more.
tons of hours and coaching. And I just felt like I was, I don't know, going to become a dad to like all of these other kids, which isn't, bad, but when it relieves or not, when it makes it to where I can't be a father to my own children, I felt like that was a problem, because like those are,
Well, that was
I
the
mean,
goal to begin with, was to spend more time with your family.
exactly. So anyway, so that was, I didn't know, and it's funny, like, because through all this, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I didn't think like, oh, like I know like what my plans A, B, and C are, and if this happens and that happens. Like, even when I was teaching, I, you're never too old to like start something new. Like
That's true.
you're never the only well, I'll say this, like during the start of real estate, they have something called like limiting beliefs. And it's not just real estate, it's anything. But it's basically, they're like, I can't do that because somebody else has already done it. Or like, I'm just too old to learn to do like this new thing, or whatever those things are. It is a limiting belief that you're placing on yourself. Like the only person stopping you is yourself.
I like
And
that.
so
I like that.
and your own mindset. If you think you can't, you're right.
That's
If you
true.
think like you're
It's
not.
true.
So it's I don't know, so it's something I never felt like pinned in, like I could. I don't know, I mean, I don't necessarily feel pinned into what I'm doing now. I'm like, if we decide that we don't want to do this anymore, then
Something else.
there's something else that we could do. But I mean, I enjoy what I do now. But at the end of that third year, um, one of my friends, his wife was going into real estate, and he was just talking to me about it. And he was like, "Man, I really feel like you'd be good at it, and I really think you'd enjoy it." And the more I started to ask questions about real estate, and it was my dad and my family, they've all like owned their own businesses and started their own businesses. And my dad, um, just got out of his business that he had for over 30 something years. And
Wow.
um, it was something that there was a lot of negative aspects of it, because when you're working for yourself, you seem, I mean, 10 time, it's hard to manage your time. But at the same time, there's a lot of flexibility. And so anyway, it was the more I learned about it, the more I was like, it's really, if you learn anything about real estate, it's that you are an independent contractor, and your license, it's just hanging with some brokerage. So like, it means nothing if you're like, oh, like my license is with Keller Williams, or my license is with, Berkshire Hathaway, or whatever the company is. It's really irrelevant, because any brokerage, you can have two different agents from the same brokerage, and they can run their business completely differently.
I
So
didn't
like
know that.
completely different. And like, one could be an awesome agent, and one could be an absolute terror, and that you would never want to work with. So like, it really is. It's anyway. So the more I learned about it, I was like, man, this is great. Like, and for me, with education, you you're basically, you can sit there and look at your pay for years to come, just because it's just a stair step raise. And it's like, you work here for 3 years, you make this much. You work here for 6 years, you make that much. You work here for 8 years, you make this much. And there's no incentive for you to do a good job, or, it doesn't, not other than like your your personal desires, and you feel, I don't know what you feel is right, but there's no incentive, because financially, because it doesn't matter if you're a great teacher or a terrible teacher, you're getting paid the exact same.
That's
And
true.
so after leaving there, and when I was at the hospital, I was working there 3.5 years, and I had asked, like, can I get a raise? Can I get a raise? I've been here for like 2 years. I've been here for 3 years. You can't tell me I'm not more valuable than I was when I started. And finally, like right before I left, they were like, hey, we know you. And I think every business is like this. And if people are listening to this and they feel like they know what this is like, I mean, it's like, if you've ever read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book, it kind of
It's
like
on my
puts
list.
it puts it all into perspective. And it's like, when you read it, you just think, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. But it's just like, the thing is, they will string you along as long as possible, for as little as possible, until they see that, like, they're like, oh gosh, like, he's gonna leave. So like, they caught wind that I was gonna leave, and I had started looking, and they were like, oh, they gave me a substantial raise. They're like, here's a big raise, we know, and we can back pay, and like, we're sorry, blah blah. And I'm I was grateful for that, but it was just kind of too late, at that point.
Yeah.
And but my point is not you know to have any negative feelings like toward them or anything, but the point is that when you're working for somebody else, you're subject to how much they say they're going to pay you, and when they think is a good time to give you a raise, or in the instance of the school system, you're still subject to what they're going to pay you. And there's no I mean, you can just look ahead in time and see what they're going to pay you, and there's nothing that you can do to increase that pay by your merit, or by the quality of your education that
Yeah,
you're giving
that's
to
true.
people. And so after leaving both of those places and having those life experiences, I just felt like I wanted to do a job where I could be rewarded for the
The quality
the
and
amount yeah, the amount of work that I put in, and the quality of work that I do. And so like, this business it's a great blend of the amount of, or how hard you work, how smart you work, and the way that you treat people. So like, it's a service industry, it's a service business. And so I just wanted to do something where I was like rewarded for the quality of work that I do. And so it kind of opened up the door. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I liked the aspect of it, and I encountered tremendous adversity getting into it, from so many people, including family members who were like, "You're gonna fail. Like, you're not get you're this is not people's primary jobs. They don't do this for career. This is like they do this as a side hustle." And so like it instilled a lot of doubt and fear in
Did
me.
that fuel you to move forward in any way?
Oh yeah. I like
I
it
wasn't
it
sure. I know people that are like, you tell me I'm not going to do this or not to do this, I'm going to do it.
Oh yeah, like so I at first I can't use the word that I would like to use, but I'll just say it made me upset. It like one person in particular said said the words like, I just let me think of the way they said it. I don't want to be, they said, I don't want to be the one to say I told you so. And
Man.
I was like, I was like, this is,
Man.
I was like, okay. I was like, I'm gonna make this junk work. I'm gonna put everything I can into it because I don't ever want to hear those words. I was like, and I was so upset. I was like, I can't believe that somebody, I don't know, like I understand. I think it was coming from like from the best possible place that it could of like that person caring for you and being
Yeah.
like, I don't
Want to
want you
see
to
the
fail.
best for you.
I don't want you to go through hardship, And so it was coming out of a good place. But that being said, maybe maybe it's one of those things like if I hadn't heard that, then I wouldn't have done as good as I did. Like I wouldn't
That's
have been
fair.
so fueled to be like, that's no, this is we're
Let
making
me
this
show
good.
you what I can do.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, that was so I got out of it and everybody there was I think two people um who were positive forces in the and one was my wife. She is amazing. And she was like, she was like, you can do this, you can do this. And it was like, okay, like I just needed like some support. And the other person I called was I called my real estate agent that helped us buy that house that
Really?
we yeah, so crazy story. We backed out of that house when we found out we were pregnant. I'm sorry, we backed out of that house when we found out I was losing my job, and then we were searching around for the house. We wound up getting the same exact house that we were originally under contract um, for $10,000 less because it had gone on the
Wow.
market. So like somebody else had it under contract when we decided we were going to buy a house again, and then I got a phone call and he said, "Hey, the house just fell through. The people's financing fell through. Do y'all want, And I was like, "Let's do it." So we wound up buying that same house. But I called my real estate agent. I said, "Look," I said, "Do you know anybody who does this as like the sole means of providing? Like, do you know somebody who's a sole provider and they do this?" Um, and his answer was no. Um, he was like, there, he goes, he did it, but his wife actually was in education. And I was like, well, he goes, but I think you can do it, man. And I said, do you think, that was my question. I was like, do you think I can do it? And he goes, I think you would be good at it. I think you can do it. And so I was like, okay, like my wife's got me, and this guy who's in the industry, in the business, he's like, you can do it. And so it wasn't a lot, but it was enough
But it was
to like,
something, yeah.
yeah, it was enough to have like at least two people. I'm like, all right, like two people actually, like my wife believes in me, thankfully.
I
and
I
and
think
then
too, it's like so important, because I can relate, but it's like, I don't need to have a lot of people that approve. And when I say like approve, like when I say I'm going to do something, I'm not asking for approval. Like I'm just telling you, so my mind's kind of made up and like you can either support me or not.
yeah,
And for me, like when I told my boyfriend about like, yeah, I'm gonna do this podcast, it was just like when he was like, I'm supportive, um, it was just like for me, I was like, that's all that I care about. You know, I told him like your opinion's really important to me, but at the same time, I'm not looking for approval. It'd be great to have support, but you know, I'm like, this is what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my thing, and I think it's really important too, like in relationships, especially with a significant other, is that like really, if nobody else supported you, if just that one person supported you, it's like that's all you really need, you know. At least
Yeah.
for me, I can't speak for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it was good. So having that, I was like, all right, let's do this. So the benefit of coming out of education, so we had a choice to get paid 12, our paycheck divided into 12 months or 9 months. And so a lot of people do 9 months and then they'll work during the summer or something like that. But for me, for budgeting, I was like, it's easier for me to know that we have a certain amount coming in every single month. And so I did 12 months, which is why it was $2,017 or whatever it was. It was extremely, um, it was somewhere in the 2000 something. It was like 17 or $34, but it doesn't really matter. Either way, it was not a lot in comparison with the bills that we were having to pay.
Yeah, and then you had
And
a baby on the way too during that
that's
time.
right. That's
I
right.
actually just want to interject real quick. I had reached out. I was thinking about making the podcast. How I got in touch with Ryan, which is really weird because like I'm so used to calling you Mr. Rutter. Um, I actually was the last time I had seen you since we kind of catched up was during that time when you were about to be let go, and I remember you and your wife were having baby number one was coming out or on the
Mhm.
way. And after that, like, I just kind of went on with my thing and, you did your thing. And, I was walking my dog in John's neighborhood, in my boyfriend's neighborhood. Um, and next thing I know, like I'm walking by and I'm like, is that, are you the listing agent on that house? Like I'm walking my dog, I'm walking Custard, and I'm like, and I'm squinting and as I get closer and closer to the house, I'm like, that's Ryan Rutter as the listing agent on the house. And I was like, I just thought it was so cool. I remember I Snapchatted like people that knew you from high school. I was like, look, it's Ryan Rutter. Like, this is so cool. Okay, maybe I'm just your only fan, okay? But everybody was like, you're so weird. And I'm like, it's so cool because, you kind of, for us as students, from our perspective, like, there was a lot of people that liked you. I know Trey Riley, Danny Servos in your class. We like really enjoyed your class, and you, for at least for me, like really changed my life. And actually, during your class, you were like, when you get out into the professional world, you can't have an email that's like, I don't know, I love Drake 123 at hotmail.com or whatever. And I remember you were like, okay, so we're all gonna get on Google on Gmail and we're gonna make an email. Until this day, that email that we made in your class is my email.
Interesting.
Um, and it's crazy because I don't know if I was just like weird, but everybody was just like, yeah, he's gone. But I was like, it was so much more than that. Like I felt that pride as I was walking my dog. Is like, okay, I remember the last time I checked in with you. Like you and your wife were not really in a good spot, and I'm like, you're the listing agent. And now as we're catching up and we're hearing your story, as we will continue to hear your story, it's just like super cool for me.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yes, go ahead.
So, yeah, so after leaving education, the best part about having it spread over 12 months was that we got paid the same amount during the summer months, even though we're not, technically in class teaching. And so my last month of education, I realized like, okay, I'm not going into this. And they had offered, they said, look, we'll find you another job at a different school. And I'm like, man, when you start to like develop relationships at a school and all the kids know you, even like kids
Yep.
coming up, they have like certain expectations about your class. And I think things change in every job, but like with education, they they change my core schedules as well. And so there was a few things that like it just kept, I don't know, reinventing the wheel and like kept changing classes every year. So like it was doing a whole new course, coursework for every single class, every single year. And it's pretty draining. And so it was nice getting into knowing that I was going to change jobs, but still being paid through until August. And so school ended in May. And so we had June, July, and then August to kind of figure out what's going on and try and make, a go at this real estate thing. So the last month it was May, I decided I'm going to do real estate and I'm going to just work after everybody leaves at school. I was just going to kind of plug away at this real estate course online for a few hours until about dinner time and then come home. So I'd stay after school and start working on that. And so I had already started doing my licensing, and which is not, it's not a huge deal. You could do it in like 2 weeks or if not less. But so after the school year ended, I went full time. I didn't no breaks. We didn't go on vacation, which we didn't have money for anyway. So, but didn't
That's
take
okay.
any. Yeah. So it was like,
Vacation.
yeah, that's right. So I went directly and just started working like it was like a job. Like I got up every morning, took a shower, ate breakfast, and then went in, what is my office at 8 a.m. and just started doing the course until 5 or 6 or 7 that night. And I wound up finishing it in a week. And
Wow.
I had done some of it during the school, like after hours. So it was probably about a week and a half or something like that. So I had finished all the licensing requirements for the coursework, and then you have to take a license, like a pre-license exam for the course. So we traveled and went and visited some family, and one of my wife's uncles worked at a school. And so I needed a proctor for it. So he proctored the exam. And then when we came back from that, I didn't want to wait to get my license. So you finish the coursework and then you get the certificate so that you can get your state license. And so then I had to go find a licensing facility where I could go take my state exam. And so all the ones locally were like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I was like, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to wait for 3 weeks. And I was like, by the time 3 weeks comes, I'm probably going to start like losing some of this retention of
Yeah.
information. So I was like, I don't want to be like aimlessly studying for 3 weeks. I found there was a testing facility in Louisiana that would allow me to do it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have, they can give you your state exam in a different state. As long as it's I guess whatever kind of licensing facility, because
Okay.
they have all of the exams, and it doesn't really matter if you're in that state. So they can give you your state exam in a different location or
Gotcha.
in a different state. So we went over to New Orleans, which we have family
Ooh.
there, and I took the exam, passed, and then started the journey of like, okay, well, who am I going to put my license with? And so I started listening to a podcast, which honestly, I don't even listen to podcasts. That's not true. I do listen to podcasts, but
You'll listen to
not,
this one.
yeah, but
Your
not as
episode.
often. There you go. But not as often as like, I think the majority of the population listens to podcasts. I'm like, I don't even have time to listen to podcasts, but um, that was the only time that I think was dedicated to listening to a podcast. And it was because it was a real estate podcast. And it was called Real Estate License Roadmap with Chris Angel. And it was kind of pivotal because like it was not, it wasn't just the support of my wife and my friend who was a real estate agent who helped us buy our house, but it was also listening to this podcast. He kind of spelled out it is for new agents, and so before I had like interviewed all of these different brokerages, like where am I going to go? Like where am I going to put my license? And it's important because if you do that, it directly affects how much money you're bringing home. And I had already experienced, like, first of all, like I'm starting from nothing. So like we don't have money coming in at all. So any money that comes in, we need to keep it, you know, and and we didn't have, anything at the time. So I started doing some research and like looking at all these different brokerages. And on that podcast, I had an episode like how to choose your brokerage. And so I had like all these interview questions, and I, I went to the brokerage, and they were like, I've never had anyone have this many questions. Um, I think most people think like, oh, this is like a great environment. I like to drink coffee, like, and so they just like
For
they
security,
like
it's free.
yeah, like they enjoy like shooting the breeze and like talking to the other agents in the office. And for me, I was like, I need whatever is the most financially beneficial for my family. And so I wound up interviewing all these places, and one of them said, "Have you thought about going to Keller Williams?" And I was like, no, I hadn't really heard much about him. So when I actually called the guy. I called Chris Angel, who did that podcast,
Really?
and I said, "Hey, man," I said, "I listen to your podcast. Like, I I'm looking for brokerages," and I said, "Have you heard anything about Keller Williams?" And he said, he goes, oddly enough, that's who when he was a real estate agent, he's not anymore.
Aw.
He said, but he goes, that's who I went with. And because they talk about, there's a whole thing like it allows you to do like your own branding and stuff like that. And so I went there and interviewed, and I was like, and they started this, like it was like the no-brainer, like after comparing everything, um just financially too. I was like, it just makes more sense than any other place that I had looked at. And so I wound up going there, and it was, I don't know, that's kind of the start of it. We didn't make any money for about 6 months, which is, I think everyone says like, if you get into real estate, budget like 6 months of not making any money. And for some people already have people lined up, and they're already doing stuff immediately. But for me, that was just not the case. And it was a really, I guess, a lot of work, just every day in and out, for 6 months, until things started to just snowball and started to like actually pick up. So I was like, this is good. Um, so anyway, yeah, that's kind of a little bit of my story. I don't know what questions, I mean, I could keep going, but if you, but if you have questions you want to ask, feel free.
Yeah. With that being said, with everything that you do, like, what does your day to day look like? I'm just
Right.
curious.
Depends on whether it was when I first started or right now. So, um, but I'll share like both. In the beginning, it was just a lot of just reaching out to people
Okay.
and like contacting people and just letting them know. Like part of it, really anything that you do for yourself, any of your own business, you can't help anybody if they don't know you do anything to help them. So
It's
like
like 100% true. A hundred
so
percent.
like it's like, who's gonna call you to repair their sink if they don't know that you repair sinks? Like nobody's gonna call you and be like, hey, Mackenzie, like I didn't know you were a plumber. Like of course you didn't, because I never told you I was. um but it's the same thing, like no one's gonna call and ask for me to help them, because they trust me to help them buy a house or help them sell their house if they don't know I do it. So in the beginning, I'd say it's 2 years, I spent just reaching out to people regularly to just see, one, let them know I was in the business, and just say, hey, look, I've changed careers. If you need anything, let me know. And I'd be happy to help you. So that was kind of the beginning. Now, um, it is mainly doing marketing, videos. I've started doing a lot of videography. Um, I went from doing a lot of YouTube videos. I started, this is, I guess, within the last 2 years, when I wasn't doing marketing videos for real estate, I was doing other YouTube videos like how to, and a lot of them were real estate related. Not every single single one of them was, but it made it to where I could monetize my YouTube channel, and so I was thankful with that. And then here within the last, I'd say 3 months, something's changed with the way that they monetize their system, and so like our the payment has gone down. Like what the money that would come in from YouTube has changed significantly, like less than half of what we were making.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of pivoted what I'm doing with my time. And before it was like, well, if it's slow in real estate, like I'll just do more like how-to videos and start building that business too. And because in something I've learned, a family member had like a crazy thing happen where he was all invested in like one business, and that business overnight, literally overnight, just went belly up,
Yeah.
and he was making probably like six figures plus, and just overnight went to nothing, like zero income.
So
And
sad.
so he was like, don't ever get in that position. And so since then I was like, oh man, like I don't want to be like all in on one thing and not have other streams to where,
Yeah, if
we're
one
fully,
falls out.
yeah. So we so I wanted to have some other form of income coming in, and since that has changed, it's kind of been a good reminder of how the channel started to begin with, because I was like, I don't know why I'm spending my time working on these YouTube videos for like how-to things, because I mean, one, I do enjoy doing it, and I think it's cool because there's things where, if my kids look back
They get
and
to see, yeah.
yeah, but who knows? I mean, YouTube might not be around when my kids get older, so I have no clue
We'll
the way how,
see.
how quickly everything's moving. Um, but I thought it's a cool way to like document change in change in our house, like change projects that we've done, and it is a good way to um, I guess help other people do those changes who don't know how to do them. And so there's that aspect of it, um but it was a reminder. The whole the way that that channel even started was through doing real estate. It was really primarily for real estate, just to help people keep me on the forefront of their mind of like, oh, Ryan does real estate, so that when I'd put out a video like how to spruce up your home, how to declutter your home, whatever, it'd be like it's something that it's valuable to them because it helps them know how to prepare your home for sale, whatever. But it's also reminds them, oh yeah, if I needed help with that, he could help me. And so after getting like our payments slash from YouTube, which honestly it really wasn't a lot. Like it didn't even pay for groceries. So like we had, I think it was like it was about 4 grand a year. And I was thinking, man, if I had spent the amount of time that I've spent on those YouTube videos and invested that back into my, real estate business, I could have made like I could have made like several times that. So it's been I'm thankful for it because it's allowed me to kind of stop, look back and think like, where am I spending my time? Where should I be spending my time? Where's the most valuable, place that I can put my time?
I
So
think that's like so important because I do have a lot of I work with high school kids at the pool, or just like even some of my friends that are still in school, or just in general, where they're like, man, I want to pick up this hobby, or I want to go tackle this, or I want to do, New Year's resolutions, or I tell people you don't have to wait until January to change,
yeah.
but they're like, I spend so like I don't even know. They're like, I get in bed and I think I'm gonna do, like, I'm just gonna text so and so good night. I'm just gonna do a small call. I'm gonna see what's on Facebook, what's on, social media, and then next thing they know, they're like, it's 2 a.m. and they're watching videos of like God knows what, right? And they're like, I don't understand like where the time goes. And then you get that screen, that I talked about this in another episode, but it's like you get that screen time notification, and it's like, gosh, I spent 14 hours on TikTok this week, or like, and you're like, if you had just invested that time into, like your business or your craft or hobbies or learning something new, it's like you could really, really do something for you. And I think that's exactly another reason why I wanted to start the podcast, to show and kind of just showcase to people that, like, if you are just mindful of your time, that's why the podcast is called Mindful Mac, because when you're mindful of your time, you're mindful of your goals, you could be more intentional about what you want to do, and kind of go from there. And by being mindful, like, that kind of clicks off the rest of the journey. Because when you're not mindful of your time or your intentional or your finances, being mindful of any of those, it's like that happened to me. Like, I would get a paycheck and I would blow it on like a weekend, not to like party, but I'm like, okay, we're gonna go to Korean barbecue, we're gonna go do this, we're gonna do that. We're at the mall, I'm gonna get a pretzel plus a drink, and next thing you know, I'm like, it's about to be paycheck time. I'm like, where did all that money go?
Yeah, it's
um,
crazy.
yeah. Uh, I'm gonna ask you the next question. What has been, it sounds like just through your story and also knowing you in different parts of your journey so far, what has been your biggest challenge and how did you overcome that? Was that like in real estate? Would you say it's family? Would you say education?
Mm, good question. So one of my biggest challenges, I think there's many different challenges in life. So I think starting your own business is a huge challenge, because there's so many question marks of like, what is this going to be successful? Is this worth what the amount of time and energy I'm putting into it? Um, but there's other things that are just as challenging, like you're balancing time. I think, that's the thing that is a consistent thing in my life is just like, okay, and a question that I've asked probably, I don't know, 10 times in the last 2 months, sometimes jokingly, but sometimes seriously, is how do you, how do you balance like your everything from your work life that I mean, you have to work, um, to pay bills and I don't know,
Understandable.
live day to day. Balance, so like working, your spiritual life, your your emotional health, your physical health. Like, how do you balance? And then like your family time with your kids,
And
if
then
you
your
have
own
any,
personal time for you as
and that,
well.
yeah, that, and then even like just time with your spouse, because that's important too. Like, just have time together with just your spouse. And so it's a challenge to just for the balance of all that stuff. Is like, okay, like how do you schedule your day? And in my job, my schedule changes. So like some days, kind of going back to that other question, now it's less reaching out to people and more people reaching out to me, and they're like, hey, like, I need help. So between the marketing videos, and reaching out to people, going to inspections, going to, closings, going and showing people property, it's the time is comprised of that. But and the thing that's helped that, is a planner, which I would have never ever used. And I tried to use it 1 year, like 3 years ago, and it's an hourly planner, which I'm like, what the heck would someone need an hourly planner for?
It comes in
Um,
handy.
yeah, well, that was totally not me. I was like, whatever, I'll remember it, and like but I realized quickly as I got busier, and they had like an inspection at this time, and a showings at this time and a closings at this time. And like, I need to call these people. I was like, I need a place to write all this stuff down. But that has been really the biggest thing to take a big load off as far as my work schedule is concerned. Because a lot of times I'm like, okay, I know we're supposed to be doing something on this day, and then I can look at my schedule and see like, okay, like that's not going to work. But I think just scheduling time has been a big challenge, and I think having a willingness to adapt or change, because like things change all the time. The market changes, technology changes, things are changing all the time. And if you, the only thing that is constant is change. Like it's always changing.
I like that. I like that.
And so if you're not willing to change or adapt to the changes, then you kind of just get stuck and left behind. And so back to social media as well. So I've been doing, I kind of like when things are crazy and the market was really, really hot, I really, I was, didn't have to contact anybody, and I really kind of fell off social media because I wasn't really doing any marketing stuff. And then now it's slowing down. I'm like, oh, I guess I better start up social media again. And so I started an Instagram like, I don't know, a long time ago. And I posted on it pretty regularly, and then I quit. And then so I started posting on it again. And it is, talk about being mindful with your time. Like it is, I've never done crack, but I would associate
Me
it.
neither.
I would associate it with like some addictive drug, and doing, because it's crazy. I pulled over the other day to make this post about, it was like a for sale by owner sign, and it had like, I guess they had previously written on there with permanent marker. Well, like anybody knows that if you sit something out with permanent marker on it, that's like a vinyl sign or anything like that, it's going to fade off or wash off, and like you can't see it anymore. So I pulled by this for sale by owner sign, and there's no writing on it whatsoever. And it's just like out of this 2-acre property. And I was laughing. I was laughing because I was like, these people, like, if you don't have time to like market your own property, like, or if you have like some other full-time job, you're not going to be able to market your property professionally. And you're not going to be like, no one's going to buy it. And I was laughing. I made a post because I was like, people couldn't even buy this property if they wanted to,
Yeah,
because like
because
you can't even see, there's no numbers on it. So I was laughing, and I decided to pull over and like make this post. At least I pulled over, I'll say that. But I pulled over, and then like I swear they set up like Instagram and Facebook. Like it is like the worst interface. Like if you try and like go to Reels, you have to like jump, like to go create a reel. You have to jump into Reels to go create a reel. And I'm
yeah.
like, tell me that's not like totally intentional, because it like just drive you to like, oh man. And so like I started scrolling through and like saving videos for marketing and stuff. And I'm thinking, I've been pulled over for like 5 minutes. I'm like, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
You know,
So
actually, when I started my TikTok, there's not really much on there because I'm just kind of starting. The first thing they teach you when you pull up the app, like you make your account, and the first thing they teach you is how to scroll. And they have animations that show you like your finger going up and down. And I'm just like, it's so addicting. You know what I'm saying? And like next thing you know, it's just like, oh, I started in real estate videos. Next thing you know, you're figuring out how to cook. Next thing you know, you're watching those crappy 5 minute, 10 minute crafts that they post on Facebook all the time. And it's just like, why am I? What just happened? Why was I
yeah,
here? You know, and
yeah,
it's
you're
just
like,
like, oh,
I just wasted my life. Oh my
my five
gosh.
minutes, man.
I know, it's insane. And the thing is, like, it is like crack. It just loops. So like as soon as the video does not end, and there is no pausing. There's no
It's
pausing the
true.
video. It like you
It
can
just does
mute
the
it.
scrolling for you if your finger's
Yeah.
broken or something.
I'm like, what? Like anyway, so time management is difficult. managing personal relationships. So there's other, I think, aspects of life that are difficult. Managing, your family dynamic and relationships, not just locally, like in your personal uh, immediate family, but just like your extended family for me. So just getting along with people, and that even in your work environment, getting along with people that you don't necessarily uh, have the best relationships with, and just making, I don't know, making it a point
Being
to love them,
intentional.
love them anyway. And it's really hard. And sometimes love can mean many different things when it comes to actually loving someone. And sometimes that means not not really having that much of contact with them because it's not great. So there's a lot of challenges in life, but that I'd say that was probably what I've said is probably the biggest ones.
So, kind of going into the next question, what took you a long time? And it could be honestly with what we just talked about, like that could have been your answer, but like what took you a long time to figure out or realize and you wish you had known sooner in, would you say
Okay.
planning?
For real estate,
Sure, whichever area of your life that you want to.
great question. So, uh, when you asked that question initially before we, started
Yeah,
talking,
we
I was thinking like,
reviewed.
what would that be? Like, what would that be? I honestly don't really have like regrets, or like I don't feel like, oh man, if I had known like doing this, because like I feel like when I got into it, when you get into any business, like there's a huge learning curve. And so like there's so many
100%.
things that you don't know that you don't know, that you're just drowning. I mean, I remember the first month, I really didn't do anything for the first month of being in this business, because the first month is just setting up profiles. Like I remember, like you have the MLS as a profile, then you got to set up your Zillow profile, then you got to set up your KW profile or whatever brokerage you. Then you got to do like a little about me about every single profile. So like I spent a full month just like how do I want to appear on all these like realtor.com, like all these different
Yeah.
websites that I'm like, how am I supposed to, I don't know, do all this? And then you have to learn, the systems that are in place for those different platforms. So then you're learning like all the technology behind it. So it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You're just like have so much coming at you. Um, but I mean, it finally like, so in real estate, and I'm sure any other business, is like you do what you're going to do like consistently. So,
Okay,
and that works. Okay, so you don't like, if what I'm going to do consistently is drink coffee and not reach out to anybody, like that's not going to help your business. But like
that's true.
it, like pick what works that you're going to do. It's kind of like the best exercise routine that you can do is the one that you will do. So like if you pick out something that you're like, oh, the best exercise routine is an hour long, it's like, but you're never going to do that. So like pick the 5 minute one that you're actually going to do, that you enjoy. And so for me, I picked out reaching out to people on, at the time, I guess was, Facebook. And so it was my way of reaching out to people. And so I don't know, like I don't have any things like I wish I had known this before, because I felt like I only had the capacity to learn as quickly as I did. And I feel like the things that I did I I feel like they were the right things to do for me. Like I didn't think afterwards like, oh man, like I wish I had, you know, instead of reaching out to people on Facebook, I wish I had started doing, cold calling people like for sale by owners or something like that. I don't know. But like it wasn't, I didn't want to do that. And so it wasn't,
Yeah,
and I'm
whatever works
sure,
for you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I don't really feel like I'm sorry, I had to plug in my computer before it died.
You're okay.
But so I don't feel like there was something that I wish I had known. I mean, I feel like a lot of life is, I mean, you can look back and think like, oh gosh, like I wish I had done this before. I wish I had known this prior. But when I look back,
Disappointing, right?
yeah, when I look back, I think, man, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't I wouldn't be where I am today. Like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Like other than saying like,
You were thankful for it.
yeah, when you look back in life and you think like there's times when I remember thinking like, why am I going through this? And what is the meaning of this? And now I can look back and I can understand the reason for like, oh, like that's why I went through that. Like there was some hardships that I went through in life that now looking back, like I fully understand like why I had to go through those. And it's because like if I hadn't gone through those, I wouldn't be where I am today. Um, so anyway, that's what I kind of feel like if I hadn't gone through the things that I needed to learn, um, then I wouldn't be where I am today.
It's true. I asked a lot of people that I know, and also just knowing these people that are on the podcast or will be on the podcast. Like my best friend, she'll do an episode, but she's kind of in the same spot as Miss Bingham, like a lot of health issues. But it's like if you could go back and undo you having so many health issues, would you do it? And usually it's a no. And even for me, when I had brain surgery during that time, like now looking back, like I think in the moment it didn't make sense, but moving forward or like in retrospect, I'm like, I would have never ever had changed that because I wouldn't have met all the people during that time in my life or who are still here with me today, or that I still keep in contact with. And at the same time, I wouldn't have learned those lessons. And I'm just like, usually when people are in dark spots, I tell them it might not make sense now. There's a really good quote. Let me pull it up. I was listening to a podcast, um, and this guy said, everything you're going through is preparing you for what you asked for. And I feel like that's pretty spot on because maybe you might not understand. Maybe during the time when you were in education, um, it some stuff didn't make sense or it was just like kind of more of looser plans. But then now you're here and you're like, oh, that's why I'm here.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that's a really cool part. Kind of going into our next question. I know we talked about before we hit the record button. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice, what time period would you go back to, and what would you tell yourself?
Great question. I think that I would just say everything is going to, my advice would just be that everything's going to be fine.
It'll
That
all work out in the
to
end.
just, yeah, like really trust God and let, let him, let him work. And because I think so tempted to take control and to try and, I don't know, manipulate time or whatever activity that I think that I should be doing or um, and then question like, why isn't this working out how I quote unquote planned it? Like why
Yeah,
isn't this going according to plan? Why isn't this
that's life.
happening the way that I think it should happen or the way that I want it to happen? And really, there's just so much of my life that I probably spent just stressed out about, you know, life not happening the way that I thought it
It
should
didn't
go.
go as planned.
Yeah, or it didn't go like in the time frame that I thought it should go. And it was like, why, I want this now. Why isn't this happening now? And I think I guess like the more I've lived and the older I get, the more I'm like, okay, like this is not about it's not about me. And it's everything's gonna be fine. Just really let go. Like stop trying to, I don't know, control everything. That doesn't mean like stop altogether and like stop working and like stop trying to provide for your family and everything's gonna be okay. I mean, but but it just means stop worrying about all these things um, that are out of your control. Do do the work that you know you're supposed to do. Be the father that you know you're supposed to be, or do your best, to be that. Be the best husband, in my
Yeah.
scenario
Be the best role
situation.
that you could be.
Yeah, and then I mean, all you can do is give everything. Give it your everything, and then in all of your deficiencies, because we're not perfect, um, just give that up to God and just say, all right, like I'm doing the best I can, and I'm going to continue to try and do better. But I don't know. That's a I think all that you can do really is just to not worry about the things that you really can't control. Do the best you can and take
I
it a
think
day at a time.
actually, if I'm to answer that question, I think that would be like the same thing I would say. I would just go back to every time where I was like, I don't understand, I don't get it, or like, why is this a lot harder than I thought it was going to be? Or, just being in those dark parts or moments rather than kind of time periods in my life. I'm just like, it might not make sense now, but it'll make sense later. And just keep going, because like right now, maybe it's not the end of the tunnel yet, and you'll meet people along the way that will, steer you kind of out of the darkness, and eventually you'll get to where you want to be. But yeah, I
Mm.
think that's how I would answer it. So I think that's a good way of looking at it. I like that. Now trying to get to know you and how you feel about your job rather than just like your story as it being your job. What is the most satisfying part of your job, and like what is the most fun part you think that you get to kind of experience and do?
so there's two things. My job, I feel like I enjoy watching the look on people's face when they find what they're looking for. Um, there's I feel like I'm not the best buyer's agent, and not because I'm like not good at helping people find property and not good. And I'm sure my clients would be like, "That's ridiculous. Why would you say that?" But I just feel like it's um I don't know, like for me, like I think some people can like push you into some like one home or another and be like, well, this, and like I think I'll just tell people like the positive aspects of a property or the negative aspects of the property, and then I kind of just let them discover it themselves. And but there's working with buyers is sometimes a lot of times like a mystery because they don't always know what they're looking for, and oftentimes they think they're looking for one thing, and then they wind up finding something completely different. Like I can't tell you how many times like I've started like looking for property and people are like, I want to downsize. And they're like, we're looking for like 1,500 square feet, 1,600 square feet. And then like, these are too small. These are too small. And like, yes, they are. Like, so let's go like start looking at like 2,500. And they're like, yeah, this is better. So it's funny because like, it always winds up being like, not always, but a lot of times it winds up being different than what you think. But there's like a look or like that you see in people's faces when they find what they're looking for. And they start imagining themselves in like a house or at a property. They're like, we could see this there, or our kids running here, or like, oh, we could have people over and like we could imagine like, so like it's fun seeing that and that aspect of it for a buyer. And then for um, the other thing that I really enjoy doing is I enjoy marketing, and I enjoy making something look and be the best that it can be. So for listing properties without spending like a ton of money, you can really change the way that a property is perceived and the way a property looks. And so there's some properties that you walk in and you could just think like, oh, this is like totally dated and straight out of the 70s and this looks terrible.
Like Forest.
Um, yeah. So I mean that neighborhood was built,
During
a
that
lot of
time.
it in the 70s. But there's one house in particular I'm thinking about that I sold in Gulf Shores, that was it was on the canal. It was built, I think, in like 79. And it really hadn't changed much since 79. But I was like, you could spend like a few $100s and make this property like, I mean, it's on the water. So, and it was on, I think it was like a half acre or something like that. So it was a double lot. It was a good sized property. And so we wound up just kind of sprucing it up. I mean, just little things like swapping out the doorknobs. I mean, you can get doorknobs offline for like super cheap, like a bundle. Same thing with like cabinet pulls that are gold. Like,
Yeah.
I
Oh.
think there's some gold that's trendy and like that's in, but you can't typically make anything gold that was from the 70s look like you can't repurpose it. And so I was like, that's not going to go. It doesn't go with anything in this house or in this kitchen. So let's like swap out the pulls, which is probably like less than $50. I don't know, wasn't a lot. And then paint can make a huge difference. And it's not something that's always required unless it's like just totally hideous. But like it's little things that you can do. And a lot of times sellers are like, I don't want to do that. And like you got to respect that if they've been, in this instance, that property had already been listed by another real estate agent and
Okay.
they never sold it. So you already have a lot to like live up to, or basically you need to exceed their expectations because you're like, they already have a negative look or opinion of like what they thought they were getting the first time they hired somebody. And so I was like, I need to make sure that, I don't know, kind of like restore their faith in somebody who actually does their job. And so I'm not saying that the other person didn't do it, but like, I just, I don't know. So we went in there and did just really like a few things and got some professional photography done, drone shots, and
Shout out to Bailey
um,
Chastain.
yeah. And so they saw it and they were like, the wife was like, she was really impressed and she really liked it, and it wound up selling. And the husband was kind of like quiet the entire time, like never said anything. In fact, whenever we started the process, he was like, I don't want you to call me. I don't want you to contact me. The only time that I want you to call me or message me is when you tell me when we're closing so I can show up to closing. So like he had already like been done with this process. And I was like, oh gosh. And so at closing, he was like, we were walking in and he stopped me and he shook my hand. He said, I just want to tell you, you did an amazing job. And
Aw.
like, and it was like, it meant a lot because like he hadn't talked to me throughout
Yeah,
the entire, and
he
like,
said, I
it
don't
was
care
like
who
one of those
you are.
feelings, yeah, you don't ever know like what someone's thinking. And so I was thinking like, I mean, I hope he's pleased. And after that, and he goes, not only that, he said like, do you have some business cards? Because I'd like to pass them out. So it wasn't that he was just pleased enough that he was satisfied with his own property, but he was so satisfied that he wanted other people to be just
He
as
said,
happy
he said,
with
happy
it.
wife, happy life.
Yeah. So he was super excited. But I think like I enjoy that. I'm almost like, I don't know if you've ever watched fixer upper. Like Joanna Gaines, like in the episodes, like she goes in and she the night before, like the family comes in, and she's like just staging everything and like putting things out. And I feel like that is what that's like for me, is like to go into a property, start. I have like some of my own staging stuff, and I'll just go in and just start staging. It could be an ugly property, like really just with what's in there. But like I have like people have disgusting, I don't want to say disgusting, some of them are disgusting, but they have like some really dated like shower curtains and things that I'm like, man, if you just like up in some artwork that's like old and dark and like you can just put a new picture on the wall, change a shower curtain, and like put a plant on the sink or like whatever, like something to stage it. And it can like totally change the appeal and look of a room. And so anyway, I really enjoy that aspect of it. I really enjoy that. So
Next question. What is your definition of success?
yeah, for me personally,
I'm gonna put this one actually with one of our closing questions. What is your definition of success? And death is inevitable. When you're gone, how do you want to be remembered?
great question. And they both intertwine.
Yep.
So my definition of success is uh, me leading my kids, my family, and others to God and to heaven. Because honestly, all the stuff in this world doesn't matter. And so I can be, the most successful real estate agent. I can make a ton of money. I can live in an awesome house. I can drive an awesome car. But at the end of the day, I am going to die. And like, I mean, it's just a fact of life. I think most people don't really talk about death because they're afraid of it. Or the truth is, like, I heard there's a priest on a podcast, and he talked. It was like during the height of COVID, and everybody's like freaking out and afraid. And he said it kind of brings to light, like it's not something that wasn't there, like your fear of death. It just brought it to light. And he goes, that fear's always been there, but now it's magnified because it's making you think about it. So it's actually a good thing, like to kind of bring to light your fears and things that need to be addressed. And he said, in case you didn't know, there's he goes, the rate of death floats roughly around 100%. and it's and that was kind of like, I felt like it's what everyone needed to hear. I'm like,
Yeah.
did you guys forget? Like, we're gonna die.
Like,
Like,
yeah, it's inevitable. It
yeah,
happens.
yeah. And I'm not making light. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a tragedy. We've had, a lot of people that even we know who've passed away. But like, the point is that we are gonna die.
Yeah,
Like,
once you're born.
life ends pretty much one way, and that's with you dying. And so for me, I think the biggest success would be just making sure that I lead my family, my friends, and the other people that I encounter in this world to God, because at the end of the day, that's who they're going to be in front of when they die. That would be, I would say, my biggest success. And what do I want to be remembered for um, when I die? Um,
Awesome hair that you got.
Yeah, exactly. My shiny cabeza. But I honestly, I don't really care what people remember me as here. No, I mean, like, I don't get me wrong, like it's not like I don't care what people think, I guess, but I really just care about what God thinks, number one, or at least that's my goal, is to just try and worry about what He thinks. But I hope what they do remember is my relationship with God, so that it compels them to know Him more. And I hope when they think, I don't know, when they think about death and they're like, man, hopefully I will have lived a life that was worthy, of the life I had been given, and hopefully I lived it well.
Last question. I was Great answer. Any advice for people that want to do what you do, whether that was in IT or real estate, or just kind of being more mindful of what they do? Any advice?
If you do IT, not all jobs are like that. But if you like sitting around doing nothing, you can probably find a job doing that. um, but if
And
you
get
want to
paid
do,
for it.
yeah, yeah. But I think kind of going back to what,
I know it's a loaded question.
yeah, I would say any advice would be don't get stuck in a limiting mindset that this is all I know. This is all I know how to do. This is all I'm capable of. That was one of the other things. So my parents instilled in me not only like we don't care what you do, you could be a garbage man. That was one thing. So that let off a lot of pressure. But they also instilled you can do whatever the heck you want to do. And I think just having that mindset of like I can do anything, so you're not restricted to growth. Like a lot of people will feel like I got to be in this business and work here for X amount of years and max out my 401k in this place and then like work here until I'm 65 and a half or 62 and a half or whatever, to start collecting retirement. And it's just like, I don't know. So one, don't get trapped in feeling like you're can do nothing else. And you can still do that job and still do other things that generate income, or start another business to where in the event that you want to leave that, you can, like,
You made those opportunities for yourself. You didn't just become complacent in that sense.
yeah. And that's kind of being like, well, what are you doing with your time? Like, so me and my wife never, I won't say never, but we rarely watch television or the news for that matter. So like typically the way we find out what's going on in the world is when somebody else tells us like, hey, don't you realize this has just happened, And I'm like, no, I didn't know that because I don't spend my time like looking what's going on because for the most part, like what I had this conversation with somebody the other day, like, what are you going to do to change it? So it's like by me knowing that, by you having knowledge about something that's going on across the world, what is going, what are you going to do to change that? For the most part, it's
Yeah,
nothing.
it's true.
So like we don't watch television, but I guess my point is like with the time that you have, like what are you doing with it? Like are you doing something that's eternal? Are you doing something that's valuable? Are you doing anything? Are you doing something that's like of value? We're created for more. So finding things that I guess not being limited, or having limited beliefs, and then I don't know, not getting trapped. But as far as someone doing what I do, there's a song. I don't even want to say what the song is because it's a terrible song, and I've never even listened to the song in its entirety. But my friend introduced me to the song, and it says the lyrics are it's ridiculous, but I'm gonna say it so you'll know. I guess like what was replaying in my head when I started this. It said, "You got to go get it, flossing till you finish, ball till you fall." What is it? I think it's like I don't know, but it's the chorus, and it's like you got to go get it, you got to go get it, and so like through my mind, I was just thinking like for me, it would like amp me up to like that's kind of like anybody getting to this who thinks like oh this is like an easy job. What? And this is I guess a quote, and I'm probably stealing it from so many other people, but like what is easy that's worth doing?
That's true.
Literally almost nothing. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think it did.
somewhere
um,
around about there.
yes. We're actually at the end. We finally made it. Thank you for your time and just I know you are can be very busy. By the way, you do or just kind of putting this out there. You're on. Have we had baby number 4 yet? Are they
No,
still on the way?
no, that's next month. So
Okay. Well, you're
unless the
getting.
baby comes early, so which I hope the baby didn't come that early, but
It's insane. Like just to think about when our paths crossed, like when I was in high school, like you were just on baby number 1 and now years later you're on baby number 4 and this is kind of what you've built and this is like where your journey has led you to be. So that's just like super exciting for me to just capture this moment because I feel like later down the road our paths will cross again and you'll be on baby
yeah,
number 5.
it's been an awesome journey.
Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to go ahead and hit the outro. So don't forget to stay mindful because being mindful can help build the best version of yourself. And also, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening in and just supporting me on this podcasting journey. It really means a lot. Also, don't forget to follow or subscribe on whichever platform you're using. It really helps us grow our community. And guys, we will catch you in the next one.